Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masech the Sotah daf Mem Ches. We are going to begin on the bottom of Mem Zayin Amud Beis. So Mishemes Yosi ben Yoezer. So our Mishnah said that when certain generations passed, so unfortunately we ended up losing a lot of different things. So one of the things that's mentioned is that when it came time to the passing of Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, so he ended up making various takanos, as we're going to continue to see. And one of the things also mentioned here is that Mishemes Yosi ben Yoezer Ishreda Yosi ben Yehuda Ish Yerushalayim Batul Hashkolos. The Hashkolos, the clusters, ended up ceasing to exist. So the Gemara wonders, my Hashkolos, or maybe Yehuda or Shmuel Ish Shakol Bo, a person that they basically had everything you can imagine, a perfect guy. Says Rashi, Torah ba'amita ve'in doifi v'shichol machloikas. So a person who has true Torah values and there's nothing wrong with them, no flaws, and or forgetfulness or dispute. Yochanan kohen gadol hever haydayas hamaiser v'chol. So we're going to see this is one of two things that were removed regarding dinim of Meiser, that he removed this notion of reciting the Vida Meiser, and also says Afu Bitel es Hamoyrim ves Hanoikvin, which we're going to see soon what that means. Okay, so ask the Gemara, my taima, why did he say that you can't say Vida Meiser anymore? So Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina Lafish Ein Daisa Noiso Ketikuno, because we don't give it anymore the way it was originally stated. Why? We'll see. The Torah says really you're supposed to give it over to the Leviim. However, since we now give it to the Kohanim, so therefore that's the problem. Says Rashi, why do we do that? Because Ezra was Masakin, as it's brought down in Masechtas Yevamos, that the Kohanim are now the ones that will receive the Meiser. Kivan de Einon Noisen Kitiknon, we're not giving it the way it was. Ein Yachon Leimer, we can't say the words of Gam Nesativ L'Levi, Kechol Mitzvah Ischa. We can't say the language that we gave it to the Levi, because we don't give it to the Levi, we give it to the Kohen. So the Gemara says, V'loidi Ashar Meisers, so why don't you at least say it regarding the other Meisers? Okay, fine, you can't say it regarding Meiser Rishon, do the other ones. Amrei Shalachish, Kol Bayis She'en Misvada Al Meiser Rishon, because once you don't say Meiser Rishon, that Vidoy Meiser, Shuv Ein Misvada Al Shar Masreis. You don't do the others either. So if you didn't do that first, you don't do the others. My taima. So Rabbi Hoya Upasach Ba Hakasav Tchila. Because that's how the pasuk begins. Says Rashi, when Osata Levi Zem Meiser Rishon, Leger Zem Meiser Ani, Bisharecha Zem Meiser Sheni Dechsev Lusichalecha Bisharecha. So because that's the beginning of the pasuk, so you can't just start saying something in the middle of the pasuk. So therefore, because we don't say it at all. L'chlal, we can deduce from here, Dafrushi Havi Mafreshi, that we were separating Meisers. V'tanya Avhu Bitel Esa Vidoi, that he was Mavatal Vidoi. This is referring to Yochanan Kohen Gadol. V'gazer al Hadamai, and he also made a gazer regarding the Damai, in which typically, if you buy something, we could assume that Trumas and Meisers are separated, unless it's from Am Arts, which is called Damai, it's the suffix. So Lafish Shalach B'chol Gvul Yisrael, we went all around. B'rosh in Mafrishin El Truma Gadol Bavad. We see that people were only being mafresh Truma Gadol. That was the only thing that they were doing. Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, when it came to Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni, Mixas and Master, Mixas and Ein Master. Some people did it, and some people didn't do it. So he said, Bonai, my children, boy, come, v'oimelachem, kishem shetruma gadol yesh ba'avon misa. So what? People are so strict to take off truma gadol, the 2%. Why? Because there's an avon of misa. There's a punishment of misa b'dishamayim, where a person eats without taking off truma gadola. So kach trumas meiser v'tevel yesh behen avon misa. It's the same thing when it comes to these other things. So why are you being strict on one? Why are you following one law, not the other? The punishments are the same. Almatz who stood v'hiskel him halokech peres ma'am haaretz. So therefore he said, anyone who purchases fruits from an Amaretz, Mafresh Mehen Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni, then what you need to do is you need to separate Meiser Rishon, and you also have to take off Meiser Sheni if it's years 1, 2, 4, and 5. Then Meiser Rishon, Mafresh Mimenu, the Mafresh Rishon is Mafresh from it. Trumas Meiser, Mimena Trumas Meiser, which is Trumas Meiser is Meiser Mina Meiser. So the 10% is taken, which is Meiser Rishon, and then from that you take off another 10%, which is Meiser Mina Meiser. But nice Lekayin. Meiser Sheni Oilo, you take it, V'oichel B'Yerushalayim, as we always do. Meiser Rishon, Meiser Ani. However, when it comes to Meiser Rishon, Meiser Ani, Hamotim Mechav Araya. So the din is, we say Hamotim Mechav Araya, namely that when it comes to Meiser Rishon and Meiser Ani, you can always, if any poor person comes, or the Levi comes to collect the Meiser Rishon, or Bismanenu Akayin, you can say, well, prove to me that it was never separated. It was separated. So we want you to at least do Meiser Sheni because you're eating it anyway, so you should bring that to your Shalayim. However, now when it comes to these other things, says Rashi, Mafresh Trumas Meiser V'Nes L'Kayin, Mafresh Kol Meisers Mimenu V'Heitzim Midei Tevel. So you have to separate everything so there's no din tevel anymore on the other stuff. V'Limcho L'Kayin, and it says over here, you sell it to a Kayin, Kashem Shu Ma'akiv Etzel Meiser Rishon or Meiser Ani, V'Omer Hamotz Mechav Araya, Gezer Dilma Ki Mashvile Gabe Ochale. Of a Marisa, Meiser Rishon, Meiser Ani, Mutar Lazarim. When it comes to Meiser Rishon and Meiser Ani, we say a non-Kohen is allowed to eat these things. The whole issue is stealing from a Kohen. Alma, what do we see, says Rashi? We actually weren't even mafresh. You said that because we didn't separate it properly, because we gave it to the Kohen and not to the Levi, Ketiknon, which is mash, we were mafresh. Clearly, we're seeing that we weren't. People were not being mafresh. So Gemara says Tarti Tikin. He actually has two unrelated takanos that were instituted. Bitel Vidoy. He stopped having people do the Vidoy. Dechaverim, even from Tam Chachamim. Because al demai shel ami haaretz. Okay. So that was the second thing that was also masakin. Says Rashi, Tarti Tikan Olam Havaris Haidais Meiser. Why did he separate that? He said no more vidoy. Mishum she'enu noisan as levim, who we don't give it to the Levi, we give it to the Kayin. Ibahatani lefisha shalach love a bittul as a vidoy koi, ela a gazer al hadamai koi. Retreat to kanos tikin. Bittul vidoy shel chaverim. He was mavatal the vidoy for even Talmud Chachamim. Afal pi shemafrish noisa. We know that they separated it. Levishay noisa noisa ketikunon. Because even when they did separate, it wasn't separated properly. Because all demai, there was also a gezer on the demai al lukeach mi amaretz lefi sheshalach, etc. Okay, so these are two separate takanos. TA 28. Elu shtei takanos tikkun Yochanan ben Gadol beinyani meisus umadua. So he was mavatal vidoy meiser because we give the meiser rishon out to a kohen, and the pasuk says that it was v'nasato l'levi. And we're geyser al demai lefi sheshalach b'chol gvul Yisrael. V'ra, we saw she'ein mafrishin meiser el rak truma. They were only separating truma. So therefore, because of that, we were geyser al demai. Okay. Weiter. The af who bitel as hamoyerin was also mavatal the moyerin. Who is that? So my moyerin, and we're asked this. Every day, al duchan. The Levim would stand up on their duchan v'yom, and they would say the pasuk in Tehillim, Ura, wake up, Hashem, Lamatishan Hashem. Why are you sleeping? So he said, no, you can't say that. There's no sleeping in Hashem's world. So he was mavatal this, that this should not be said by the Levim. The time when the Jewish people are in pain, and the Ovi these idol worshippers, everything seems good for them. Doesn't really mean that Hashem is sleeping. It just means there's an appearance that that's what's happening, but he was going that this should be removed. TB 29. V'af hu bitel es hamayrin. Mihem hamayrin amadua bitlam. I got that wrong. Mayrin elavim. Shahayu amrim al haduchen hapasik or lamatishan Hashem. Bitel amirazu. He said we have to stop saying that. Or in shin lefon. Hashem doesn't sleep. Now perusho. This interpretation means mizman sheisol batzar ki ulu shin lefanav. V'af royal amrim bizman shebeis hamikdash. V'ain royal amrim bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim. So there's the key line that he adds in, because we're talking about the Bizman Shebeis HaMikdash Kayim, it's not appropriate to say such a line. Okay. Weiter. Okay, so the Gemara then continues and says the following. Ves hanoikfin. They were also guys against the noikfin. So my noikfin, some Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Shoyim Sartin Egel, they used to bang the animals. Rashi says, Lahapil Aretz, they should fall into the ground, Bein Karnov, between their horns, Kedei Shipul Dam Be'enav, so that blood should go in their eyes. Asa Ihu Batal, he stopped this, because Mishom Demexi Kimuma, because it looks like you're creating a mum on this animal, which is problematic. But Masnisa Tana Shahayu Chayv Denaiso, but Makalos, they would hit it with sticks. Keder Shaisanaiso Lifnei Ovodas Kachavim, like it was done before Ovodas Kachavim. Amlehem Ad Masniatem Machil Nevelos Mizbeach. It seems like you're putting the nevelos on the mizbeach. Nevelos hashachadluhu. What do you mean? You did the shchita el trefus. Shemenikav krum shel moyach. Maybe you're causing some hole in the membrane of the brain of the animal. Amad v'hiskin lehem tabois b'karka. So they say that, but the problem is it's hard to shech because this animal is running all over the place. So we bang it to weaken it. The problem is you can cause it to become a treifa. So therefore, instead, they had these huge rings where the animal would have their heads inserted. So this way the animal would not move as much. Ad Yamav Haya Patish Makab Yerushalayim, as we saw in the Rashi and the Mishnah, that they would B'chol Shemoyed, on Chol HaMoed, we would say you were not allowed to be banging as a blacksmith, even if your job is a davar ha'aved. It's something in which is allowed to be done on Chol HaMoed, because it's so loud, people are not going to know that you're doing as a davar ha'aved, and therefore because of that, we say that the din is he was mavatalit. Kol yamavu ha'ya adam sarach lishol adamai kida amram. Let's see the next Mishnah. Masnisa. Mishbatla Sanhedrin, from the time that the Sanhedrin was batal hashir mibeis hamish ta'ois. They said no more should we be doing singing in feasts or like in taverns. Shnemer b'shir lo yishtu yayin v'gaimer. In song, don't drink wine. Mishemesu neviim harishainim. When the very first of the neviim died, the Gemara is going to explain this. Batal urim v'tumim. The urim v'tumim did not have any power. Mishachar Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, batal hashamir, the shamir worm, which we're going to see exactly what it did to cut stones and why we needed that, it disappeared. But noifes sufim, also noifes sufim, which Gemara is going to explain in 3 answers what that means, was also removed. Pasku Anshi Amana Yerushalayim, that the Anshi Amana left Yerushalayim, which we had this also in Gemara in Shabbos. Shnemer Hoshia Hashem ki Gomar Chasid v'Goymer v'Hashem Gemul Omer Hein Rabbi Shul miyom shechar Beis Hamikdash. From the day that Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Ein Yom she'ein boy klol. There's no day without a curse. V'lo Yored Hatal of Racha, that dew never came as blessing. Benitol Tama Pedis, and was taken the true delicious fruit taste that came from Hashem, from these fruits. Rav Yosi Omer Af Nital Shuman Hapedus. It was also the fattiness was taken out of the fruits. Rav Shimon ben Elazar Omer Hatahara Natla Es Hareach. The purity was taken out of smell. Hamaisers Natla Es Shuman Hadagan. The Chachamim Omrim, they say Haznus Vakshafim Ki'ilu Es Hakoil, that znus and witchcraft basically wiped out everything. Says the Gemara. How do we know that this pasuk is talking about that Bashir lo yishtu yayin is when the Sanhedrin stopped singing? So Rav Huna Rabbi Shua Yemekra Zakenim Mishar Shavasu Bachurim Midiginasam. It says the elders from the gates rested, which means they stopped serving as in the Sanhedrin, and the young ones began singing. Amarav Udna Dishama Zimra. An ear that hears song, Ti'akir is removed. Amarav Zimra Bebesa Chorba. A song in a house is destruction. B'seif, we see this in the end. Shenemar Kol Yishayre B'chaloyin, the voice of song in the window. Chayre B'tzaf, there'll be a sword at the doorstep. Ki Arza Eira. My Ki Arza Eira. What does that mean? So Rabbi Yitzchak, Bayis Hamasubach Ba'arazim, a house which is covered up with cedar. Irhu. What do you mean? That sounds like it's as strong as a city. Ela afilu bayis hamasubach ba'arazim. Even if you have a house which is sturdy, misroireya, it will become destroyed. Amarav Ashi Shmamino, we can see from here, ki maschil churba, that when a destruction begins, besifa maschil. Besifa, actually, is by the doorstep. So zimra bebeis churba besifa. The song in the house, it destroys by the doorstep. Okay. Shenemar chayrib batzaf. Yiboy say b'mahacha, when the pasuk says Ushaya Yukas will be destroyed, will destroy Shar the gate. Omer Marba Rav Ashi, what did he chazalin to me was seen nagach ki Torah, and it gored like an ox. Omer Rav Huna Zimra de Nagdi, this song ude bakare shari, and the cattle watchers and the sailors the gardoi aser, the weavers aser. Rav Huna batal zimra. Rav Huna was mavatal song. Kamea avze bezuza. So they stood up 100 geese for a zuz. Umea sa chiti bezuza. Okay. Let's see Rashi. Moshches finoi. So Zamri de Nagdi is Moshches finoi, like sailors. Bechevel Shori she'enu el zarzim b'malachtam. Okay. Kamei az bezuza umei sachiti bezuza v'lo iboy. Also Rav Chisda zalzale be iboye avzva bezuza v'lo mishtakach. Rav Yosef Zamri Gabri v'ani Nashi Pritsusa. So it says that the women will become parts. Zamri Nashi v'ani Gabri Ke'esh ben Nairis. A man will be like fire to straw. Umay nafkimina live tule ha mikame, to mavatal this in front of him. Let's look in Rashi. Ke'esh ben Nairis lafi she'oine mata elzno lishmoya es hamazamer. Someone who turns their ears to be able to hear a song, Lano Sacharov, to answer after him, Venimso Hanoshim Naisin Libam Lakol Hanoshim, so therefore you end up directing your heart to these women, the Kobi Isha Ereva, and it's not allowed to be done. Okay. Levatuli ha mikame. Rav Yochanan Kol Shaisa Ba'arba Mini Zemer. Maybe chamish piranyos. Anyone who literally drinks 4 different types of zemer, of song, he brings 5 calamities on himself. Shnamar hoy mashkime baboiker, one who works, one who woke up in the morning. Sheikh yirdafu, beers or old wine he'll pursue. Biachre beneshef, until the neshef. Yain yadli came. It'll fire them up. These different musical instruments. V'yayin mishtehem, wine between both of them. V'yispal Hashem lo yabitu. They did not look. Maksiv achara, what's afterwards? L'chein goa ami mibli das. Shigarmim golos ha'olim, because exile from themselves. Ukvaidim masei rav, in honor of they will die in famine. Shemevim rav oilam, because they bring rav to the world. That these multitudes are going to cause that Torah will be forgotten. Vayishach Adam v'yishpal ish. So the man went low down and he fell. Shigarmin shaflas l'seneshel Baruch Hu. It will cause lowliness for the enemies of Hashem, which is referring to the Klal Yisrael as a euphemism. Ve'en ishel Kodesh Baruch Shnemar Hashem ish Melchama. Ve'eni gvoihim tishpalna. That the eyes on which are high will be lowered. Shigarmim shifla shel Yisrael. Ma'aksiv acharav. So what's written afterwards? L'chein, as we continue Mem Ches Amud Beis, it says, Hirchiva she'oil. Nafsha. You widen the she'ol, which is referring to Gehenna, Upa'ara piha levli chayik, without limit. Be'yared hadara ha'moyna u'shoyna v'always ba. Okay. Mishemesu Nevi'im Harishayim, some Nevi'im Harishayim, who are these people? Some Rav Huna Zed David, Shmuel, Ushloimoi. Rav Nachman Abim made David, in the days of David, Zimnan Salak was Zimnan Lot Salak. Shahari Khan, Shahari Shoyal, Sadaik, who was the Kohen Gadol, the also low, and it went up for him when he was asking questions. Shol of Yasar, a different Kohen Gadol, of Yasar, Velo also low. Shenemar Vial of Yasar, that he was removed from this position. So we see that actually it was, but then eventually it was removed, that the Urim Tumim had any potency. Meisif Rabba bar Shmuel, Vahi lid Rosh Elokim Kol Yemei Zachariah, Hamavin B'Rosh Elokim, my lab Urim Tumim, Lo B'Neviim. Tashma, V'Shachar Beis HaMikdash, Rishon, when the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Bato Ari Migrash, the Ari Migrash, which was surrounded the Ari Levium, became batal. Upaska Revatumim, also Revatumim stopped. Upaska Melech Mebeis David, Malchus stopped from him. V'im L'chashcha Adam Loimer, a person is like quiet to say. V'yomer Tishrashta Lehem. Tishrashta comes to the word Nehemiah. Nehemiah was considered to be the Histarashta, the one who's permitted to be able to drink wine, even though there was typically a gezerah against such drinking of wine, as it would be Yain Nesach, or Yain Stam, or Yain, again, Yain, which is not allowed, but we martyred it for him to because of the Melech. You cannot eat from Kodesh HaKadoshim ad oimid kohen l'urim v'tumim, until the kohen stands with the urim v'tumim. Armelo k'adam she'adam l'chavero. It's like a person says to his friend, ad sheyichu meisim b'yom Mashiach ben David, which basically is saying good luck and sometime in the future when Mashiach comes. El omer Rav Nachman Yitzchak ma'an Nevi'im Rishonim lafuki mechag Zachariah malachi. It's referring to those great people. That when they died, Nistalka Ruach HaKodesh Yisrael, Ruach HaKodesh left. V'yafol Pikein Hayu Mishtamshin B'Vaskoil. If they heard a heavenly voice, they would listen to it. Shapamachas Hayu Mesubin Ba'aliyas Beis Guria B'Yericho. One time they were in the city. Nitna Lehem Baskol. They heard a voice. Min Hashmayim. The Amr Yesh Bechem Adam Echad Shroi Shetish Shechina Love. There are people that the Shechina should rest upon. Now Shein Dora Royal Kach, but just the generation is not on that level. Nasnu Inehim Behil Hazakin. So they understood probably who they're referring to is the great Hil Hazakin. Ukeshemes, when he died, his Piduhu, they made the following eulogy. Hey Chassid, Hey Aniv, Talmidah Shel Ezra, which is similar to the Gemara in Brachos, that statement of Hey Chassid, Hey Aniv, Me Talmidim Shel Avraham Avinu, here it's Shel Ezra. B'shum Pamacheres Hayim Asubin Ba'aliyah B'Yavna. So they were in the city. Nidlahem Beit Baskol, there was a heavenly voice. Ben Hashmayim, Yermlahem Yesh Bachem Adam Echad. Is there a person there? Shirish Tish Shchinalav El Shein Dara Zachayin Lekach. So Nasnenehim B'Shmuel HaKatan. So they said Shmuel HaKatan is the great one. Ukshemes, when he died, his Piduhu He'anav He'chasim B'Talmidim Shel Hillel. So just like Hillel had this greatness, so Shmuel HaKatan was next. Yafu Omar B'Shas Misaso Shimon V'Shmuel L'Charba. also said at the time of his death that Shimon and Yishmael will be killed. V'chavroihi v'katola ushar amal l'biza. The rest of the nation will be plundered. V'akan sevian asidin l'meise al ama. V'yaf Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba bikshu loimer hechasid he'anav el she'nitrfa shah she'in maspidin al harugi malchus. So the only reason why we didn't do it is because of harugi malchus. Says Rashi, me'emos hamelach, because there was a fear of the king. Lafikach michal bi'adam. Therefore, they were not able to do this eulogy. Mishachar beis hamikdash batal shomer hu. So this worm was no longer around. So Tanban Shamir Shabo Bana Shlomos Beis Hamikdash, this worm which helped build the Beis Hamikdash, Shnemar Habayis Bihi Banoso Evan Shlema Masa. So a stone which was quarried out from another location, Nimna Hadavarim Kichsavan, Rabbi Yehuda. So fine. So this pasuk is basically saying that on the construction of the Beis Hamikdash, it has to be quarried, but it cannot be that it's cut with any metal tools or metal instruments, and therefore you need the shamir to be able to do that. There are precious stones. They were chiseled away. It says that there should not be tools. What it means is they would use metal tools, but they would have to do all of those different parts of the construction outside the Beis Hamikdash, and afterwards they would bring it in. This way they wouldn't actually be cutting it with any metal instruments in the Beis Hamikdash area. Rabbi Nirin de Rabbi Yehuda ba'avnei mikdash v'dir Rabbi Nechemia ba'avnei beso, in his own house. Rabbi Nechemia shamar l'mayasa. So according to Nechemia, if in fact you are able to cut through stones and all these things with knives, so what was the whole purpose of the shamir? So meboil g'desanya vanim halo in kaisanoisa b'diyai. These stones were not allowed to be used. Rashi says on the ephod, on the choshen, you didn't write with ink. Shenemer petuche chotam, has to be engraved. Ve'im misartin alehem be'izmo. The problem is you can't cut it with a knife. Mishum shenemer b'milu isam. It has to be complete, which means none of the pieces could have been chiseled away, which was what a knife would do. Now the kaisav alehem b'diyai, what they did was they wrote it with ink. Umar lehen shamir mibchutz, and they would put the shamir on this area from the outside. And it would get cracked by itself, like a fig. By the sun. Nothing will be missing. Like this valley. So this is telling you that this is what they had to do. They needed the shamir at the very least in order to use it for the choshen and the ephod, or possibly even for more than that. Tanaban, shamir zeh briyaso kisa'ira. In its creation, it was like a barley seed. Mesheshes me'brachesnim, it was created from the beginning of creation. Ve'in kol davar kasha yachal lamed lefanav. Nothing else could possibly stand it in its way. So how do we have the ability to deal with this? So karchenaiso bis foigen, we wrap it up in silk, shel tzemer of wool. Menichenaiso bi'itne shel avor malaya, and we will basically remove it with a tool which is made out of lead, shel avne. Fine. So karchanaiso b'tzipayir b'sad shavdel manichanaiso b'itne shel avor malaya, and it would be taken with a tool of lead. Subi tza'irin with barley. So Amar Rabbi Ami mishachar mikdash rishayin batla shira. The song was batal paranda usachuches Lavana, Zuchus Lavana. Tanami Hachi, Mishar Beis Mas Rishon, Batal Shira, Paranda, Zuchus Lavana, Verechev Barzel. So these are all different things that became batal during the time of the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. V'yesharim av yain korish, also the wine which was congealed, haba misnir hadayim akigli develo, which looked like this cake. The noifes sufin was also batal. So my noifes sufin. So amarav soila shitzafa al gabi nafa. It's this fine flour that was floating on the sieve. The daim la'isa looked like dough. Sheniloisha b'dvash or shemen, that it was kneaded with oil and honey. The Levi Omer Shteki Karis Hanid Bakois Batanor. It's actually two breads that were attached in an oven. The Toivchais Uvois, and they would continue to inflate until they touched one another. Rabbi Shulban Levi Oimar Zed Davash Haba Min Hatzifya. This is honey that came from these high mountains. My mashma, so can Matargim Rav Sheshus. Kalma dinas zon debriyasan, that how many do these bees go up? B'shaitan b'roim yom, and it floats and flies all over. Umasian duvsham mi'ismei tura, that the honey comes from these mountains. So you see, that's where the honey came from. Tanan hasam, kol nitzuk tahar, any flowing liquid is tahar. Chutz medavash zifin, except for this honey. V'had sifichin. So my zifin. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan davash shem zifin bo. When it comes to this special this honey, says Rashi, shem zifin bo mitar shehu toiv, since it's good v'av and thick. Ma'arvin bo mayim, we mix it up with water. V'yayin v'ein nikaros bo, and therefore it doesn't become recognizable. Reish Lakish Amar al shem mekaymo k'dechsiv zifaterem. Similarly, the pasuk says, "B'vo hazifin v'yamar l'shah haloi David v'gaimer my zifin." Amar Rav Yochanan b'nei adam hamazifin divreihem, those who literally talk, are engaged in forgery with their words. Rabbi Lezer Amar al Shem and Kaimom, the actual, it's referring to the place. The chsiv zifaterum uva olis. Upascha anshi amana Amar Rabbi Yitzchak elu b'nei adam shehin maminim b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu. These are the people that believed in Hashem. The Sanya, Rabbi Lezer Godoloi, Merkol Mishesh, Lo Pas Basaloi, anyone who has bread in their basket, V'oimer Ma Oichel Amach, what am I going to eat tomorrow? Eno Elam Katni Amana. They have little faith. V'andrem Rabbi Lezer, my Dechsiv, Kimi Baz L'yoim Katanais, what is it that they degraded Yom Katanais? Umi Garmot Tzadikim, who caused the Tzadikim, she is bazbez shulchan and asal labai. So katnos, the lack of faith, shahaya behen shulahamina b'Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Eimer elu katni b'nei Rishi Yisrael. These are the Rishi Yisrael. Says Rashi shemesu kashem katanim, that they died when they were young. As we continue to Mem Testament Aleph, sheme vazvazin din avihen. Says Rashi kairim din avihen. They rip up and they tore asunder the dinim of their father. They could shaboyim with dinim ayrim mafanav etc. Also the level ayrim mafanav verbanish shalom mi'achar she'ata asili parimehen. They're going to pay them back. Lama hikesa shinehem bom. Why did you torture them with the pain of our death? Adkan.